Okay, so we will be beginning the webinar now, and co-host can admit as people are entering the session. So, my name is Zoha Asgar, and I am going to be your co-moderator for today, along with Gunjan. Some general rules for this webinar. Please make sure that when you enter, your mics are muted and your cameras are shut down. Your cameras are turned off to reduce background voice and to reduce the bandwidth of the call. We will start by introducing our speaker. Our speaker for today, um, we are very happy to have him, Dr. Zamrak Khan. Dr. Zamrak Khan is a graduate from Allama Iqbal Medical College in Pakistan, and he went on to pursue his internal medicine residency at the prestigious Cleveland Clinic. He is currently working as an attending physician at the Cleveland Clinic. He has served as a COVID frontliner since his time as an attending. His interests include academic medicine, research, value-based healthcare, and medical education. Today, he will be sharing with us his journey and provide us some valuable insights on how to go about the schooling process as an international medical graduate. Over to you, Dr. Khan. Without further ado.
Thank you, Zoha. Thanks to the SAC team for having me, and thanks to everyone who joined this webinar today. So a little bit about me. As you already know, I finished my residency in internal medicine last year. Currently, I'm working as an academic hospitalist at Cleveland Clinic. My interests include medical education. I love teaching medicine to students, residents, and also I love educating patients as well. Outside medicine, I like running outside whenever I get time. I also love watching some random YouTube videos, mostly documentaries, whatever shows up on my YouTube algorithm list. So today talk will be about how to navigate the US system for entering into residency. Since you know that I did my residency in internal medicine, so most of my experience and talk will be about internal medicine. But at the same time, the same rules can be applied to any other any other specialty, whether you are doing, you're applying for radiology, surgery, anesthesia, because for an IMG, you all have to, or we all have to pass through the same process. If you just go through those basic steps, I think it would be pretty much adequate. So today, the topics that I wanted to cover would be the visa, because it is one of the most important aspect of getting into US. So I wanted to cover that topic in the beginning. We'll also briefly talk about US clinical electives. We'll talk about USMLE exams. We all know there are a few changes which are to be made in near future. Some of them are temporary changes and the others are mostly permanent going forward from 2022. So we will talk about them. How are they going to affect your application? We'll briefly talk about US clinical experience. We'll talk about research and the actual match process. And at the end, we'll talk about um, some of the tips that I actually, or some of the suggestions that I want to share with you guys, what I learned from my experience and what I learned from mentoring some of the other juniors or people from my medical school. So the first thing is visa. Why I want to talk about visa in the beginning is visa is a big hurdle. Obviously, as a foreign medical graduate, if you are entering US, we all need visa. Some of us will probably not need visa if they have green card or they were born here. So those people will be lucky, but majority of them will require visa. And just to share from my experience, when I was applying for residency, that is back in 15 and 14, what I actually applied for visa after doing USMLE step 1. So when I was doing preparing for the exam, there was always a thought process going in at the back of my mind all the time. because some things are controllable and some things are not. So unfortunately, visa is probably out of our control. So I always thought about it. What if I score very high in all of those exams, but at the end of the day, I don't get visa or my visa is denied. So there are a few tips about visa and when to apply for visa. Some of the countries, it all depends on your individual circumstances, whether you require visa or not, which country you are from. There are few countries where the visa is very easy to get, and there are a few other countries for whom now visa may not be that easy to get. And you can just tell from your experience, you can talk to your colleagues, you can talk to your peers. If someone from your medical school got the visa very easy, so it means the chances are you are also going to get it very easy as well. But if there are some colleagues whose visa was denied or went into administrative processing, then the chances are you may also fall in those category. Again, it's a very random process. You can't predict who is going to get visa and who is not, and whose visa will get into administrative processing. So there are few steps, a few tips which I wanted to talk to you about, and when is the best time to apply for visa. So we already spoke about why is visa so important. The best time to apply for visa. In my personal experience, the best time to apply for visa would be, I understand that most of the participants who are joining this webinar are still doing their, in the medical school. So if you are in medical school and you have time, I would suggest to apply for US clinical electives right away. Because there are few advantages of doing clinical electives. Apart from getting the experience, it helps you a lot in getting the visa. Because if you are applying for visa, you have to prove it to the visa officer, your ties to the country, and there is no better tie. There's no better way to show your ties to the country when you know or you tell them that you are still in medical school and then you will come back to finish your medical degree. So if you apply for US clinical experience, US clinical electives during your medical school, the chances are that your visa will get accepted without any delays or without going into administrative processing. And from my experience, from what I tell, that if you apply for the visa during your medical school, you will get 5-year multiple entry visa or 10 years multiple entry visa, depending on which country you are from. So that pretty much sets you apart from the other, or maybe put you on the right track. So the visa is actually out of your mind, and now you can just focus on the clinical exams and things that are in your control. And then types of visa, most of the time it will be the visit visa. So B1, B2 visa is the type of visa that you can apply for. The other visas are J1 research visas. Again, you have to find a sponsor for your research visa. And some of the other visas are F1 visa, which if you are doing some clinical course in US, like sometimes people come in for attending Kaplan courses or the US Semele CS exam courses, or any other smaller degree that you can apply for, you can get an F1 visa as well. But majority of the times, if you're coming to US for the first time, the best way to get a visa would be B1 and B2. And the way to get it would be applying for US clinical electives or CS clinical skills exam, which has been temporarily stopped, or there are a few other alternatives which are available for. We are talking more in from future perspective. Hopefully these things will be temporary, and going forward from 2021 and 22, the clinical skill exam may come back. But for now, the only best option available for you guys to apply for visa would be US clinical electives. We can also talk about when the research section, we'll talk about how to get visa when you're applying for research. The next thing is US clinical electives. So the US clinical electives is when students apply and they come to US to do a one month or 2 months of clinical electives. in different universities of United States. The question is US clinical electives required for your application? No. But does that help? Absolutely, yes. It helps a lot. The US clinical elective is the only proper US clinical experience that you get. So I would strongly encourage you guys to apply. If you are in third year or fourth years of your medical school, apply for this as early as you can. I think you can apply for during fourth year or final years. What it does is it gives you, we already spoke about, it helps you in getting the visa. Most of the time it will be 5 years multiple or 10 years multiple entry visa. The other thing is it gives you the proper US clinical experience. As a medical student, you are allowed to examine patients, you are allowed to write notes, you're actually part of the medical team, and then you can present the cases. And there's no better clinical experience outside this US clinical electives. Most of the other experiences would be like externship, which I don't think exists anymore, and observership, which is most of the time you're just observing the team without any proper patient interaction or gaining access to US electronic medical records or presenting the patients. So this is absolutely a vital part of your application. And we'll talk about it. Can it help you better in regards to your application? So we spoke about it helps you in getting visa. And the other thing is it helps you making those connections that we hear about all the times, that in order to match into US residency, you need connections. So this is the most vital part of US clinical experience, because if you are here for a month or 2 months, you actually work with 2 to 3 attendings. You work with different teams of residents, because teams usually change after two weeks. So if you get a chance to meet or work with 2 or 3 attendings and 3 or 4 residents and 3 or 4 interns, so those are the connection that actually you need to match into US residency. And then find mentors. So those people that you met, more often than not, most of them will be willing to help you during the entire journey. You can identify them as your mentors. They can vouch for you during the entire process of when you apply for the match process. They can help you write letters, and then you can ask them to review your CV. You can ask them to review your personal statements, and you can ask them to write letters for you, because there's no better mentor who is actually passed through this entire process, has been through the process of interviews, exam part, and also passing through the actual match process. So those are the people that you really need to help during the entire process. And US clinical experience gives you that edge to meet different people, and then you can actually identify them as a mentors. We spoke about letters of recommendations, and this is the strongest letters of recommendation that you can get from any clinical experience is when you work as a student, because what it does is you get a chance to, as I told you, you get a chance to examine patient. You actually can present the patient, so you can actually work at the level of any intern or most likely as at the level of an intern, and the attending or the residents, they can observe you and they can observe your patient interaction. They can see how your communications are like. They can observe how your notes are like, how your presentation skills are like, and they can see what your work ethics are like. And those things go into your letters of recommendation. So if you're working as an observer and then ask someone to write them a letters of recommendation, the chances are those letters may not be that strong, because the most thing you can do is maybe ask them to give them a presentation or ask some questions. But at the same time, all the other aspects of the letters, when someone is interviewing an applicant and there is a letter of recommendation from any attending, they look at what aspects of personality the letter talks about. So what they need is, the most important thing they need is what kind of a person you are. Are you a trainable person? Is someone who can be trained during the 3 or 4 years of residency? What is your aptitude towards medicine? So they don't, I mean, most of the time, sometimes people talk about, okay, I have this knowledge. So they can see what your knowledge is from your scores. They can see what your knowledge is from your CV. But the letters gives the other aspect of your personality, whether you are trainable, what your work ethics are, how are you as a person to work around with. So those are few things that you can actually get from any letters that you get out of any clinical experience during your elective years. So I would highly focus on, if you have the time and you have the resources, definitely apply for US clinical experience as an elective student. And then it gives you an insight into the residency. If you I can just talk about it from different aspects. So if you go to a program and this program is as a program which you would want to match there, working there as a student and interacting with the residents, interacting with the attendings, give you an actual insight to what that program culture is like. Is this a program where you would want to match, or is this a toxic program? There's no better way of finding it out earlier the better, because the last thing you would want to do is to match into a program and then on the first day of residency you find out, okay, this program is not the ideal fit for you. So most of the time people do their clinical electives at a place where they want to match, and if you work there as a medical student, you actually get a good insight about the culture of that program. And most often than not, you will actually like the program, but sometime if there is something off about that program, so find it earlier than later is the best thing to do. And then meeting those people also gives you, if you really want to match in that program, and then you meet all those people, and then you see how badly you want, and they see how badly you want that program, working there as a student actually helps you as well. I can give you my example. When I was doing clinical electives at a place where I ended up matching, I did two months of rotation at one of the departments, and then I showed my interest. I told them, hey, I like this program, so now I really want to match here. So the attending actually asked me to meet the chief resident, and the chief resident met me. It was like a year before the match application was about to start, but I showed them that I wanted to match there. I told them, this is my application. I still have a year left. What are few steps? What are few of the aspect in my application that I can actually improve? I don't know whether it helped or not, but just showing my interest there. And when the match day came in, or when the application opened, I applied and I told them, hey, this is my name, and I did my 2 years of rotation at your hospital. And those were the things we spoke about. And I did get a call. It actually did help me a lot as well. So if you really want to match into a program and you are doing clinical electives there, um, this is going to go a long way in so many different ways. And then the next thing is USMLE exams. We all know that few changes that would be made in near future. The topmost part is CS. So if you are applying for match this year and the year after, the chances are you may not have to take CS exams, and you have to apply through the other alternative pathways. I'm not entirely sure about how those pathways looks like, but I've been told it is easy than CS exams. So take the most out of it and just clear those exams, and whenever you can. And when to take those exams. So we know there are 2 or 3 steps of the exams. Step 1, CK, CS, and step 3. So the earlier you take them, the better it is. If you are applying for residency and you get selected for an interview, those program directors are very smart. They know when did you take those exams. They know how much time you took uh, to prepare for those exams, and they will ask you in such a subtle way that you won't even realize that they're actually judging you based on how much time you took for the exams. So for example, if there's a student who takes exam during medical school and scores, I would say like an average or more than average, and then there's a student who takes a step 1 2 or 3 years after graduating and scores more than average or like a 99 percentile. So the program director knows that someone who took the medical that exam during medical school actually maybe did better in the exam as compared to someone who took 2 or 3 years to prepare for that exam. So we may not know that the scores does matter, obviously, but the time you took to prepare for those exams and the time you took to take those exams actually matters a lot. And then program directors have a way of finding it out, like how did you prepare for the exams and how much time did you take for the exams. Because here in US, generally all students take their exams during their medical school. So if someone takes 3 months to prepare for the exam, obviously their score will be on the lower end as compared to someone who took 3 years to prepare for those exams. I'm not saying that you should take the exam as soon as possible. Don't give it time. A month and two is not going to matter, but obviously uh, don't take 2 or 3 years to take any of those exams. The average time that students should take for the exam should range between 5 to 6 months for every exam. Which exams matter the most? To be honest, all exams matters the most. If you are applying for match this year and the year after, step 1 will be scored, and CK has always been scored. So both exams, for foreign medical graduate, anything that is scored matters. But from going forward from 2022, the step you are just required to pass step 1, but you are not required, or the step 1 won't be scored. So that may be a plus point or maybe negative point in so many other levels, because you only have one opportunity to show your skills or show like how much medical knowledge you have, and that will be CK. But for now, both step 1 and CK, the more score you get, the better it is. And the future of step 2 CS. So for now, step 2 has been exempted, obviously because of COVID-19. If you ask me, like, what is the future of step 2 CS going forward, I don't think step 2 CS will be required for American graduates, because there has been a lot of talk about um, step 2 being a very useless exam for medical graduates, because the success rate for American graduates to pass step 2 CS is more than 98%. So what they look at it is as if it's just a wastage of money. And there's been a talk about getting rid of step 2 CS for many years, like the past 5 or 6 years. There have been many various blogs and people are very vocal about it. So now that with the COVID, that this step 2 CS has been exempted for almost all applicants. So going forward, I don't think at least American graduates will be required to take step 2 CS. But for foreign graduates, this may still be some kind of other alternative pathway, like there may be the TOEFL exams or something on the line of IELTS exam. It may still be required. But I don't think step 2 CS, at least for the American graduates, will be required going forward. For foreign grads, it has plus and negative aspects. So the plus aspect is obviously you don't have to take step 2 CS, which takes a lot of time, money, and resources. But one of the negative aspect of that would be it may affect foreign graduates when they're applying for visa. Because most of the people that I know who applied for visa, they applied for CS. If there is no CS to take, then probably you can't apply for visa, because this was one of the exams which only took place in US. So people had a good excuse all the time to apply for visa anytime they wanted to. That's why I'm focusing so much on clinical experience or applying for clinical electives during your medical school, because now with US, with step 2 CS out of the question, the only or one of the other way to get visa would be clinical electives. If you are in your medical school right now, definitely apply for electives. The other question which I am asked many times, is step 3 required? No, step 3 is not required, but it helps. I did step 3 before applying or after I applied. There are a few smaller community programs in New York City who look at step 3 score or want you to pass step 3, but in a broader way, if you're applying for the bigger programs like university programs, you are not required to pass step 3. But being a foreign graduate, if you are looking for H1 visa, which is one of the visa which makes it easier for us to apply for green card process, for step 3, for H1 visa, step 3 is required. And again, you don't have to take step 3 before the match process starts, but before the match or the match result comes out, you should have step 3 results in hand if you're applying for H visa. But majority of the students do not do step 3. Step 3 is an exam which is required by ACGME to pass it before second year or middle of third year. US clinical experience is required. I mean, most of the places do ask for US clinical experience. As I mentioned, clinical electives is your only option to get a clinical experience. I don't think observership counts as clinical experience, but it depends on the person you are working with. Sometimes the attendings you're working with are very lenient, so they can go out of their way to allow you to examine a patient and write notes. But strictly speaking, as an observer, you are not allowed to have access to electronic medical records or present patients or write notes. So it's very difficult to get good letters of recommendation from an observership. But clinical electives during your medical school is far more important. And this is the only clinical experience that you will get. Observership, again, it depends on the, it helps, but it depends on the person you are doing observership with. Most of the people here, they want to help. So if they see someone needs clinical experience, someone needs letters of recommendation, they will go out of their way and write letters for you. But at the same time, you're not guaranteed to get good clinical experience. It depends on the person you're working with. So it's kind of a based on your luck. The next thing is research. Is research required? No. What if you show research in your application? It just means that the person can write, but at the same time, you don't need research, especially if you are applying. I've been asked if someone is just out of medical school and applying for residency on the same year or the year after. So obviously you don't have time to get research experience here in US. So that is not going to count against you. Research helps, but at the same time, it needs time. And what do we mean by research? Research means that a full commitment, that you work with someone for months and years, and you actually got something out of that experience. Like there's at least 1 or 2 publications, not just showing that you were doing research and then there is no output from it. So output matters, manuscript matters. So that is what a proper research experience is. So what I would advise is, if you are going into like internal medicine where research is not required and you don't have time for it, so don't waste your 1 year or 2 years just looking for research experience. Who needs research? So anyone who is going into like a very competitive field like surgery, obviously you need some research experience. You need to work with some of the some of the mentors in research, because you want to work with them, you want to show your dedication, you want to show your passion, because surgery and maybe radiology, those are very competitive field. And then most of the time it's the American graduates who match there. But if you work with someone for a year or two, show them your commitment, show them your passion, they will go behind their way to write good letters for you and call the program directors and vouch for you. So those are the people who actually need research. And sometime if there's a setback, there is like a red mark on your application, there is an attempt on CS or any of the other um, USMLE exams, or there's gaps in your from the time of graduating and then applying into residency, then in that time you will need research experience as well. Again, the actual process of research does not help that much. It's making those connections, because remember, we spoke about that electives during medical school is the only time when you will have a proper clinical experience. Outside of that, making those connections with the mentor is very, very difficult unless you go for a research. When you show commitment for a year or so, then that person you are working with can write good letters for you, can call program directors, and will look well on your CV as well. So those are the times where you need research experience. How to get research positions? Again, this is a very random process. Most of the time, it's the bigger universities who has some research spots. So you have to go to the website of those universities and then look up their directory and find emails and just send random emails to whatever people you can find. Send like hundreds and thousands of email in a day, and then the chances are you will get a reply, because sometimes those mentors have a research process going on, and they will send you an email and say, okay, they are interested in talking to you. But there's no other way of finding it out unless there is one of your colleagues is working somewhere and they recommend you. But other than that, it's most of the time it's a random process. I know many of my colleagues who are applying for research position, they would send out like 100 and 150 emails every day. And then if they were lucky, they would get some reply back. But again, even if you get a reply back, that does not mean that the research spot for you is guaranteed. There will be so many different obstacles for you. Like sometimes they will tell you, okay, we don't sponsor visa. Sometimes they will tell you, we don't take foreign grads. Or sometimes there will be so many other restrictions. So unless there is like the, you sign the contract and you get the actual access to their system, it just don't rely on it. Keep on emailing different people unless till the time you get an okay from your mentor that okay, you've been selected. um, I know people who actually got like 10 emails, 5 emails, 10 emails, and they never got any position, just because down the line there's always some obstacles. So keep that in mind. Till the time you get an okay from the mentor or from their department or from the human resource that you're being selected, that is the time when you know for sure that you got the position, but not before that. And then the match process, I'm sure you all know, the match process usually starts in September. This year, I think it's going to start in October just because of COVID-19, but we all hope this is going to be a temporary and things will come to normality of going forward from next year. At least that is the hope. So it starts from September or October this year. Keep in mind that whenever you're taking any exams, um, or when you start preparing for the match process, look at the timeline in mind. What you don't want to do is know when to take your exams. Like for example, I've seen people who would start their process, the exam preparation, and then maybe delayed by 15 days or 1 month, and then they find out that the results of their exam will be declared only after the match process begins. So you don't want to waste that time period, um, because that is it on a long run, it may matter in a way that you probably may not get as many calls as you should have had you applied earlier. Again, parts of applications, we pretty much spoke about all of them. You need good scores, you need good letters, personal statement, and if interested, we can talk about this, a whole different topic. We can talk about some other time as well. And then selecting programs, again, you can go through ERAS, select the programs, make sure what you are looking for in a program. You want to go to an academic place, you want to go to a community place, what area you want to focus on. So it depends on your individual preferences. Ranking the program, this is also once you get the interviews um, and the time is like how to rank those programs. Every person has different preferences. So for me, the most important thing was I want to match the program when I have the support system. As a foreign grad, you want to have that diversity in the program where obviously the residency is not the only aspect of matching into US. You want to enjoy the process. You want to have the peer. You want to have the support system. So keep that in mind because there will be days when you will be off work and you want to make the most of it. So go to a place where you have family, you have friends, and a place where you are welcome. It may not matter to you in the beginning when you are selecting programs, but trust me, once you match there, you want to have that support system, want to know people in the area, want to know people in the program. So just don't ignore this aspect of ranking programs. Obviously, when you go there and you interview, you will get a good insight into the residency program, into the culture, how the program looks like, but at the same time, make sure it's a place where you want to spend the next 3 or 4 years of your life, because this is very important. Again, this is about selecting programs or ranking programs. I attended this one TED Talk, and this is one of the quote that was delivered during that presentation, and it actually liked it very much. What it said is, diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance. So this was delivered here in Cleveland. And this is what diversity is all about. You want to match into a program where not only included, but you're also part of the system, you're part of the culture, because that is also part of the growth process. And then some of the tips, I have been, since day one of when I matched, I've been mentoring my colleagues, my juniors, and people, whoever has approached me. So I've learned a lot during this process. And those are some of the tips that I actually suggestion that I learned from my experience and from the experience of my colleagues on the people I actually mentored. So start the process early. You want to make sure if, first of all, decide for yourself if this is the journey, or this is where you would want your career to end, or this is where you would take your career in this direction. So decide it for yourself, and once you are sure about it, just start the process early. Contact your seniors from medical school and ask them questions, and then see how they can help you. Take the exams early, and the earlier you apply for the match process, the better it is. Identify mentors. This is also, I cannot lay more emphasis on this, identifying the mentors. And mentors can be anyone. It could be your colleague, it could be your attendings, it can be someone from your medical school who is just a year senior than you. So anyone who has been through that process, make sure you identify them as mentors, and make sure you share everything with them, your successes, your failures, and then ask them any question that you can think of. Because without identifying role models or mentors, this process may take a longer time than you probably should. And then the most important thing is enjoy the journey. It may seem to you there's a very long process, especially if you are in medical school. First, you have to graduate from the medical school, and then you have to apply for those exams and do clinical electives in US, the visa process, the actual match process, and then waiting for the match result. what I would suggest, just enjoy the process. Just don't look at it as step-by-step process. Just look at it, what is lying next ahead of you. If you have just started this journey, make sure you are only looking at the step which is lying ahead of you. If you are yet to take step one, just focus on step one. Don't focus on anything else. Once you take step one, then focus on CS or CK. So this is how we should approach this process. Otherwise, you may find it very daunting. And then again, when I was preparing for this exam, there was so much discouragement. People were actually not encouraging me to come to US or apply for US residency. I'm not sure if you guys remember or not. In 2012 and 13, there was this one article which came out in JAMA, which said that there would be no foreign medical graduates. There won't be any spots for foreign medical graduates after 2015. But that was just totally untrue. Because if you look at the data from NRMP side, it says that for the past 26 or 27 years, in every specialty, there are more and more foreign graduates are matching. So this is a plus side. The US will always need foreign graduates in the near future, next 10, 20 years. I don't see that there will come a time where there won't be any spots for foreign graduates. And this is for every specialty. It's not limited to internal medicine. It's for every specialty. US definitely needs more doctors, and every year the number of foreign grads who match into US residency increases. And you can look it up at NRMP website. And these are some of my journeys. This is when I went to, this is again, when I said enjoy the process, this is when I went to one of the interviews in Florida, and I felt like I aced the interview, and I was so happy, and I got some time. I went to the beach and enjoyed the experience, and I had some friends there. So we went to the gym, we went to the beach and had a good time there. So again, this is a journey which you can enjoy. And this is from the first few weeks of my intern year. You get to meet so many different people. Like if you look at this picture, there are we all are interns, and we all are from different countries, and they are my good friends even now. It's been 3 or 4 years since then. So definitely worth taking. People will talk about residency is hard, but there's so many, this journey is totally worth it. And you will enjoy every step in the process. We used to call it Froyo Friday. So every Friday, our group of interns would meet in the cafeteria and would just reflect upon how the week was, or what we learned, or if there was any plan for the weekend. So these were great times. And this is, again, you will have time during your work. Like for example, if you are on this is a busy inpatient service, people who are very sick, but you still get time to live that moment, have a time with your colleagues. So this was during World Cup, Football World Cup in 2018, where we were watching, I think France, I don't know who the other team were playing, and we watched this match live. Again, you will find time to at least, even if you are on a very busy rotation, you will have time to enjoy and have some great time with your colleagues. Again, this is just clinic. This is our clinic. When one of the patients didn't show up, and then we just say, okay, let's make the most of it. We took some funny pictures. The idea of sharing this picture is just to let you know this, once you match, or even during the entire process of the USMLE, starting from your medical school all the way to matching for residency, is totally worth it. Just trying to motivate you guys. It may look very difficult right now, but down the line, it's totally worth it. So that ends my brief talk about matching or navigating the system into US clinical residency. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khan, for this extremely valuable session and for these amazing tips. We're so thankful to you for that. We do have a few questions to ask. So Zoha will be assisting me in the Q&A session. So I'll start with the first question. It says, it's from Bhargavi, and it says, I'm in second year right now. When is the right time to take up step 1 and the consequent exams, and which year should we apply for clinical electives?
So good question. If you are in second year, I would say to wait till 2022 because in 2022, just like 1 year left now, 1.5 year, they will just be looking at that whether you passed the exams or didn't pass the exam, because the step 1 would not be scored. So if you are looking to score good on step 1, in that case, you have to dedicate much more time to it. But if you're just passing it, probably you don't need that much time. But you also have to make sure that you don't get an attempt in the process. So this is tricky because you will obviously be applying for the match process after 2022. So I would suggest start preparing for step 1 right now and maybe take it in 2022. Because from 2022, step 1 would not be scored. You just need to pass it. And then the time that you save, you can actually focus more on your CK, because CK will be the only exam which will be scored. So yeah, maybe take it up to step 1, start preparing for it right now, read the books, get into habit of doing the Q banks. And whenever you feel like you're ready for step 1, take the exam in after 2022, because obviously you'll have to be in fourth year to take the exams. And when to apply for clinical electives, I would say the more clinical electives you can get, the better it is. I would say fourth year or final year. There are a few students who apply for clinical electives during their final year and then come for electives after their exams. So whatever works best for you, fourth year or final year is the best time to apply for US clinical electives. There are a few programs who will require you to pass step 1. So if you can pass step 1, the chances are you will get a clinical electives into better universities. And again, don't look at the place, how highly ranked that place is, whether this is an Ivy League university or not. If you get multiple options, then choose the one that you feel like is the best for you. But if you don't have any options, go to any place which is offering you clinical electives, because the time, you only have 2 years to apply for clinical electives, and probably only have like 1 to 2 months where your medical school will allow you to go to any clinical electives outside your country. Place does not matter, but if you have the options, go for the place which is highly ranked. But if you don't have options, don't cancel US electives just because the place is not an Ivy League university. You can go to any even community hospitals will give you a very valuable experience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khan, for that very elaborate response. We really do appreciate it. The next question is from Reem. In view of the global pandemic we are in right now, we know that most US medical elective programs are suspended for international students. So is there any other alternative that you recommend?
This is for clinical electives?
Yes.
Unfortunately not, but again, I'm just trying to be positive, and hopefully this thing will be temporary. Going forward from next year, I think the clinical electives will open up, and at least that is the hope. Other than that, if there is no open electives during this year, I don't know if there is any other option. So again, this is not normal circumstances, and I'm pretty much hopeful this will not last forever. I'm hopeful that things will change from next year. But as of now, I don't think, unfortunately, we have any other alternatives. But I'm pretty hopeful that from next year, they will open up again.
Thank you for that. We do have more questions. The next one is from Shekhar. It says, do we have to pay for clinical electives besides visa costs, etc.?
So most of the places will ask you to pay for it, but then there are some free electives as well. Like the place where I did my residency, they were offering free electives. It's one of the better hospitals, but they did require you to pass step one. Um, so if you have passed step one, the chances are you will get free electives. Uh, but again, there are few places which will ask for some money depending where you are going. Um, so yeah, there are both options. You have to Google them, look through their website. But there are places who are providing free electives, especially if you are past step one. Like my program or the place where I did my residency, they were offering free electives, especially if they had passed step one. And they also provided free accommodation as well. So it depends on where you get it. There are hundreds and thousands of places where you can get it. Just apply broadly and see whichever is cheaper and whichever is free. And then if they're asking for money, choose the one that you can afford. Obviously, there will be wide variety of places asking for wide variety of requirements. But there are uh, places who are providing free electives.
All right. So our next question is from Samir, and he asks, "What would you recommend for someone who wants to pursue a surgical residency? If you have any advice regarding that." And he also asks if you are comfortable, if you can share the ranges for your scores and how long after your graduation did you match?
Sure. So to answer the questions about residency, one of my colleague, she wanted to do surgery. So what she did was she did 2 years of research. I think she did it in University of Chicago. She applied. She did the same thing. She every day she would send out like hundreds of emails, and then she got some replies. She went for the interview, and then she was selected. It was more of a postdoc research fellow. um, I think she was paid as well. If you are lucky, you will get paid, but you may have to do like volunteer research for some time. So research is absolutely required if you want to go into any surgical field. And IMGs have matched into surgical fields. And I just gave an example of one of my colleagues. And the other way of doing that would be you can apply for the prelim or the clinic prelim surgical positions. They are very hard position. Generally, US graduates do not want to do, in order to give you an insight of what prelim is, if you want to match into anesthesia or radiology or maybe neurology, you are required to have 1 year of prelim year, which is either in surgery or in medicine. Surgery being obviously very difficult. Most of the time, those places or those spots goes unfilled or is filled by the foreign graduates. Um, American graduates want to do their prelim in medicine because it's comparatively easy. So if you are really interested in doing surgery, you can apply for prelim in surgical positions, which is comparatively easy to get. You work for 1 year, again, make that connections, show your passion, and then if the place like you, they can take you as an intern the next year. And I know a few people who went that route, and then they got into residency of surgical residency. And to answer the other question, so my scores were pretty decent, more than 260 in that time. I don't know what the average score these days is, so I scored more than around 260. And again, I took an average time 5 months for each exam, and I started preparing for them during my medical school. And after 1 year of my medical school, I took both of those exams. So it does matter because, again, if you are going for an interview and the program director is looking at your score, and then they look at your what year did you graduate and when did you take your exams, if there is a gap, so it gives them impression. Obviously it took 2 years to apply to get those scores, so probably it will not be as impressive as someone who took it during their medical school or immediately after medical school. But again, having said that, as a foreign medical graduate, the only thing that sets you apart from the other is your scores. It's okay to delay it by a month or two if you feel like you're not ready for the exams, but not more than that. Don't waste an entire year on it. Because look at it from the perspective of like how why score does matter. The program where I work at, we get like 5,000, 6,000 application every year. So how we screen those applicants is we screen based on their medical school, like which medical school they're from. Obviously, if they're US graduates, so they get a little higher points. And then there are few known schools outside US. They're very famous, so we screen people based on those as well. And the third thing is we screen people based on their scores. So if I get 2,000 of application, obviously no one is going to read 2,000, 4,000 application. No one has the chance to read 4,000 application. What they do is they screen people based on their scores, and then maybe they screen it down to 500 application, and then it gives them a chance to look at your application. So no matter what is inside your CV, how strong your person statement is, how strong your letters of recommendations are, if they don't get a chance to look at it, so obviously that is not going to matter. So scores are important from the perspective of giving them the opportunity, giving yourself the opportunity to have your application looked at. If your application is strong and scores are strong, then obviously you'll get a call for the interview.
Thank you for sharing that. Those are some amazing scores. We have two questions from Furkan. The first one is, from your experience and seeing other IMGs, did you find that those on a H-1B visa found it difficult to find a suitable fellowship due to the difficulty of transferring this visa? And in your opinion, what do you think really made your application stand out other than meeting the program director?
So the first question is it difficult to apply or get a fellowship spot based on the H-1 visa? It depends where you're matching, because most of the time when you match into an H-1 program, H-1 program is mostly sponsored by community programs. There are only very small number of programs, or the university hospitals would sponsor H-1 visa. So it will not be because of your H-1 visa, but because you probably didn't match at a bigger program, which will help you in going into fellowship. But there are programs who will sponsor H-1 visa. So if you really work hard during your residency, I don't think that matters. Again, H-1 visa is sponsored by only a limited number of programs. If fellowship is something that you want, so my only advice would be to go to a place where the success rate of matching into fellowship is high, and most of the time that will be any university program. So then in that case, don't look at the H1 or J1, just look at where do you want to match. And then and the other thing is, once you're on H1 visa and then you want to match into a university, you can always go from H1 to J. So there's no restriction. So go to a place where you would want to match, even though they're sponsored H visa. But once you apply for fellowship, and then the place where you want to match, they sponsor J visa, or you don't have any other options for H visa, you can always go back from H to J visa. So it's not going to affect your application in any way, but give yourself a chance. If you can get H visa and then the plan is to stay here, maybe do H visa. And what was the other question? What was the other question?
So he's asking, in your opinion, what do you think really made your application stand out when you met the program directors?
Apart from meeting the program directors, I think
Yeah,
it was,
apart from,
yeah,
yeah.
I think it was scores did help me. I had 2 letters from the place where I'd worked, and yeah, just meeting people there, and scores helped me. And then maybe interview also went well. Again, the only reason I got a call from that place was because I had known people there, and my experience of working there helped me. And then having those letters from the place where I worked, so they knew those people that I worked with, and probably they vouched for me as well. And again, you don't need those things, but just to answer those questions, going back and looking at it in a hindsight, I would say maybe just working there and knowing people there actually helped me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khan. The next question is, how much do grades matter in matching to a US residency program? And I assume they're asking about medical school performance.
To be honest, I don't think it matters, because everyone who comes from outside US, the grades are pretty good. It does not. Um, but there's only one place which did mention to me. Again, those program directors are very, very smart. So they look at each and every aspect of your application. So for example, if you scored 270, 280 in your boards in your USMLE exams, then they go back and look at your grades in medical school as well and see whether you were a brilliant student throughout or you're just a brilliant student. You took 3 years for your clinical exams, and that's why you scored 270, 280. So grades do not matter unless there is some kind of discrepancy in your scores. So yeah, one of the program director did mention to me, okay, say, okay, you scored well. And then I looked back at your application and I saw that you were a brilliant student throughout. But to be honest, they don't trust anything outside their system. So whether it's reliable or not, because we all come from good colleges and we all have scored well during a medical school, they do not look at it from they do not look at it very thoroughly. It's just maybe to look at the trend, where the trend is, or sometimes they look at it. And the other thing is they also want to see whether you are trainable or not. Something I want to focus more on it. They are looking for someone who has life outside medicine, who is a good team player, and those are some things that you can actually show in your application by your sports, by extracurricular activities, something that you did outside medicine. That matters more than actually your grades in your medical school.
Thank you for that. The next question is from Summer, and the question is, it's related to COVID-19. What is your view on COVID-19? Do you believe everything will be able to get back to normal after the vaccine comes out? And also, what made you want to apply for residency in the US?
Okay, so COVID-19, I think the COVID-19 is here to stay, but people just will have to learn to live with it. We have already accepted that COVID, the cases here on daily basis, we have more cases than we used to have in March and April, but people were more serious about it back then. Now, it has changed life for sure. Like there are certain aspects of our life which will be gone for good. But I think COVID is here to stay, and we just have to learn how to live with it. There will be some new guidelines about everything. That's what I said. I mean, the COVID will be here even next year, but I don't think that it is going to affect the residency, that they would not allow people coming from outside US, or the elective spots will be gone for good. I don't think that's going to be the case. They may do some more extra screening. You may be required to have a negative test, or maybe wearing a mask on regular basis, or so things like that. They will be new, but COVID will be here. COVID is here to stay. I've been on COVID floors for many, many months now. I think the cases are not declining. It's just because we have gotten used to it. And this will be the case in near future. In regards to vaccine, I don't think when the vaccine is going to come out, even if the vaccine comes out, it is going to take some time. So maybe the COVID is here this year, COVID is here to stay next year, and we'll see what it looks like in 2022. But we have learned how to live with it. That is how uh, I see COVID going in near future. The next question: what made me come to US for clinical experience, or for residency? My school was actually very famous for all the graduates either coming to UK or coming to US. So even at the back of my mind, from very early in medical school, I knew that this is where I wanted to be. Most of my seniors were here, and then my colleagues always wanted to come to US. So I was in that, my friend circle, we always were talking about it. So I had peer support, and so very from early in my medical school, like second and third year, we made this group of friends where we were studying together, and we actually made out a plan and how to apply and when to apply. And just to give you some perspective, like we had a huge class, like 300 students in our class. Out of 300, around 100, 150 are here in US, and 50, 60 are in UK. So there's a trend from my medical school for people to come to US. So that is how I decided about it. And that's how I ended up getting here.
Okay, so thank you so much for that elaborate answer. Our next question is, can we apply for clinical electives while we are on a tourist visa? And do you know what's the procedure for that?
Uh, on a tourist, yeah, you can. I mean, the clinical. So the so you're only required to have visa. That could be any visa. Most of the time, when you are applying for clinical electives, it will be through B1, B2, or tourist visa. Uh, there are a few places who will ask you to apply through F1 visa. So what you need to do is you apply for the clinical electives. They will give you an acceptance letter, and then you take that acceptance letter to the visa officer, and they will issue you a B1 or B2 or F1 visa, whatever they require you to do. So yeah, this is the only way of doing clinical electives if you need a visa.
Okay. The next question is from Khizra, and Khizra says that what if someone could not do their clinical electives because she is in final year and will be graduating soon, so she won't be able to do her electives this year because of the pandemic. So what
So
is your
yeah,
yeah?
so good question. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, that you are not, is US US electives required? No. Does it help? It does help. There are so many other aspects of your application where not everyone will have those parts in their application. So if you can do it, do it. But if you cannot, you've already passed that phase. You have graduated. Then in that case, just focus on the other aspects. Make sure you have good scores. Make sure you apply for observership, because as I mentioned, in observership, one of my letter was from observership, because the person who was writing the letter for me just went out of his way and then gave me a very good letter. So it depends who you're working with. Even if you don't have clinical electives, it does not mean that it's the end of the world. Just make sure you focus on the other aspects of your application, which is make sure there is no attempt in your exam, make sure you score well in your exams, and make sure you apply for observership, at least 1 or 2 observerships, and then get 1 or 2 good letters out of it. Again, it's not required, but if you can do it, do it. What else?
Okay, so we have a few more questions. The next one says, you mentioned that there was more than one type of program, the community program, the university program. Is there a specific difference between the two, or are there any specific reasons as to why I should pick one on and not the other?
So university programs are generally the bigger hospitals who are affiliated with, they have a lot of research going on. There is a medical school attached with it. And then the hospitals are pretty big as well. They have fellowship in those hospitals. So those are what we call university programs, and the cases are very complicated. Um, and the community programs are just like your run-of-the-mill hospitals who are more focused on patient care than actual education. Like there may not be research opportunities. The medical school may not be affiliated with that place. So those are a few of the basic differences. If you really want to match into a fellowship, then a university program is the way to go. But then again, getting into a university program may be difficult as compared to going into a community programs. There are a few community programs who are, I mean, they are not like proper universities, but at the same time, they function at the level of universities, like they have all the different subspecialties. They may have even medical school with them, and they have all the fellowships. So it depends on which, you have to talk about the individual hospitals you are focusing on. Like the place where, like Cleveland Clinic is not a university place, it's still a community place because it's not a proper university, but it does function at the level of university. So I don't think it matters. It matters which program you are getting calls from, how big that program is, how big the place is. At the end of the day, the focus should be to match anywhere, apply to as many programs as you can, and then rank programs based on what you like about that program, or where you would want to match based on the options that you have. So you can't control whether you want to match that program or not. So you can focus on 1 or 2 programs, maybe apply for electives or observership in that place, make some connections. That's the most you can do. But then it depends whether you'll get a call from there or no. What you can do is to select the programs based on your list, like where you got interviewed, and then rank them based on your preferences.
Thank you for that. The next question is, many universities are offering virtual internships, and is it worth to apply for it?
Uh, Again, this is an individual approach to it. Virtual internship, if you really want to do it, do it. If there's no other option, but I don't think you can get all the things that we spoke about, like the actual making connections, working with residents, presenting your cases. They may not be available to you if you're working through virtual internships. If there is nothing else available for you, maybe do it, but it's not going to replace the proper in-person clinical electives. These are some strange times right now. So I don't know, unfortunately, I don't have a better answer for it. If you don't have any other option, then obviously do it, but it may not be as good as the proper in-person clinical electives.
Thank you. It seems like Zoha has lost connection with us, so I'll continue.
Okay.
But we do have more questions. Are you okay to continue answering them, or?
Let's take couple of more questions.
Sure, no worries.
Sure.
So the next one is, would you recommend going to the USA for the master's medical degree if you don't want to settle there and come back to your home country?
Yeah, of course. Any education from, yes, but again, keep in mind the education is very expensive. So if you can apply for something that you're getting any scholarship for it, so I will obviously recommend it. But then again, this is not something that I did, so I can't comment on that. I'm myself pursuing master's degree in education, but my objective is to stay here. I don't know whether doing masters here and then going back to your home country and then practicing there, because I have very limited knowledge about it. But if something that you want to do, obviously go ahead and do it. Look for the places who are providing some scholarship, and look for the places where you really want to go and do your masters there.
Thank you for that. I think we have Mariam who would like to unmute herself and
Yeah, sure.
ask a question. Go ahead, Mariam.
Yeah, hello, sir. Thank you so much for the talk. It was very informative. I think what I would like to ask is, for an IMG who wants to stay back in the US, what would be the process and what are the routes available that we can take after residency?
So your question is how to stay in US permanently?
Yes.
So once you match here, the chances are you are going to stay here forever. I mean, if you really want to stay here, you will stay here because it's a very streamlined process. So I don't know which country, it depends on the country you are from. Are you from, which country are you from?
I'm from India.
So from India, it may be a little difficult because if you're applying for the green card process, you have to wait in line, and the process can take up to 10 to 15 years or maybe more than that. But then again, as long as you have done your training here, you can still stay on a visa for the rest of your life. I've seen many of my attendings who I work with. They're still on visa and they've been here for 15 and 20 years, and they frequently go back to their country and just get it renewed. The other thing would be there's the other process which is called EB1, where you apply for a green card through a different route, which is do some research, like 1 or 2 high impact articles, and then use that as your basis. If you're from India, that is the easiest way of getting green card. The EB1, which is through research process, and you have to apply for it after completing your. You can even apply for it during your residency if you have good research experience. Again, once you do your training here, the job demand for physicians are very, very high. And if you want to stay here, you can still stay here for the rest of your life. Some of the other countries like Pakistan and some of the other countries, it's very easy to get a green card if you're on H1 visa, or if you are shifted to H1 visa, it takes 2 to 3 years. Your employer will sponsor that, and then green card, and then 2 or 3 years after green card, you will get the passport. So staying here in US long term is not that difficult, especially if you did your residency here.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. The other thing is, so I think a lot of us would just love to get in contact with you and maybe talk to you a little bit more after this because this is a limited time. So would you be like comfortable sharing your contact? Like I don't, it's totally fine if you're not.
Yeah, sure. So I will shamelessly plug my Twitter handle, which is Zamrak_MD, ZAMRAK _MD. You can always contact me through Twitter. I'm happy to answer. I'm very active there. You can direct message me, write me a tweet, and happy to help you guys in any way I can. I'll just repeat it: Zamrak, ZAMRAK _MD. Hope that
Thank you so
helps.
much, sir. Yes, thank you
Sure.
so much, sir.
Thank you so much for that. We'll just take one last question, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think we touched upon this a lot, but in terms of extracurriculars, what would you recommend that we have on our CV?
So the extra curriculum, it should show in your CV, in your application, or when you're going for the interview. Um, you should show it in a way that there is a life for you outside medicine, because residency is a stressful environment. But I showed you in those pictures, they want you to know, they want to know that you actually are an outgoing person. You're happy to work in a team. So any team sports. Any hobby like painting, or you can see like even watching movies, listening to music, running, hiking, more focus on team sport. Those are the things that they actually look at. You don't have to be extra good at it. Sometimes what we do is we mention in our CV that I got a gold medal. One of the problem with people from coming from Pakistan, India, or any other outside US, we want to show them that as if we are the good at everything. You don't have to be good at doing or the best at doing everything. You just have to have a passion for something. We don't have gold medal in any sports that we have ever played in. Just show them that you like playing soccer, cricket, hockey, or you're into like any adventurous kind of activity, because once you mention that in your CV and then you are there for the interview process, you can talk about it and your personality will come out of it. So they will know that, okay, this is a person I can train. This is a person who works in a different culture. Is a person who is willing to work in a team. This is a person who has the life outside medicine, where the work on him is very, very high, and then he can, whenever he gets time, he can go outside the hospital setting and enjoy his life and come the next day very refreshed. That is the whole purpose of extracurricular activities, and it is very important to survive in this system. It could be anything. You don't have to be good or best at anything. Just have passion for something. Show it in your CV. Mention that in your personal statement, so that when you go for the interview, they know and they can talk about it, and you can talk about it.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you to everyone for sending in your questions. We're so sorry we couldn't take all of them today, but you can always contact Dr. Zamrak on Twitter, and we will be sharing his Twitter handle also in the chat box. And thank you so much, Dr. Zamrak. I'm just going to pass it on to Zoha now. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zamruk, for being so cooperative and for this very insightful session and taking out time to answer all of our queries. So with this, we will close this session. If you have any last comments or remarks, please do let us know, and then we can end this meeting.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. Happy to talk about it anytime. And yeah, the only last comment is just enjoy the journey. I mean, it may seem very difficult. You will get to know many people. You will get to know different cultures. You will visit different places which you probably may not have visited. So yeah, just enjoy the process, and everything that you do is actually worth it. Every step will be challenging for you guys, but once you match and then you look back at it, you'll see that it's totally worth it. Again, happy to talk about it any other time. If you guys have any more questions, I can come back some other time as well. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. It will be great to have you again. So looking forward to seeing all of our audience and talking to you again. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Thanks. Bye.